Hello lovely people! Today we are going to deal with a topic that I have been struggling a lot. We're going to give our wrists some love. Wrist pain is a problem that many yogis struggle with. No wonder we're putting a lot of pressure on our wrists, and that right from the start. Without any special warm-up or preparation, we're starting with our sun salutations, where we already put a lot of pressure on our wrists. Usually we realize that it was too much for our wrists when it's already too late. Before I share with you my wrist warm-up routine, I want to illustrate why it is necessary to do a warm-up. I am an Ashtanga practitioner and I want to raise the awareness of how much pressure we really put on our wrists. This does, of course, not only apply for Ashtanga yoga. As I already said, we are usually starting our yoga practice with the sun salutations without warming up our wrists. This is despite the fact that there are quite a lot of postures that are putting a lot of pressure on our wrists. If we do 10 sun salutations, it means that we are jumping back and forward 20 times. These 20 times may include handstands, which are increasing the pressure on our wrists. Chaturanga is even performed 25 times within our sun salutations. And of course, we're doing the same amount of upward facing dogs and downward facing dogs. But of course, it's not only the sun salutation, there are more postures or transitions that are asking a lot from our wrists. In the following, I will go through some examples. I filmed some close-ups from my wrists so that you can see this not only the pressure on the wrists, but also the angle that matters. For sure, I have to mention our vinyasas, which we perform over 20 times when we're practicing primary series. From my experience, it's particularly the jumping back and forward that we can feel in our wrists. Another example is Uttanapidasana, which is already quite weight-bearing on our wrists when we jump into it and get out of it. But being in the final position alone already puts quite some load on our wrists. Because of how far we have to lean forward, Lolasana is neither a very wrist-friendly posture. Kumasana itself is not very problematic for the wrists, however the transition into it and out of it is. Bakasana was already part of the transitions showed before, and thus Bakasana itself is also not very friendly for the wrist. From my experience, that is particularly the case when we straighten our arms. I have already mentioned handstands. Especially press handstands put a lot of force on our wrists because we have to lean forward. Mayurasana is another example of a posture that is not very wrist-friendly. Indeed, there are many more examples, but I think for now this is enough to have exemplified that we do have to warm up our wrists. So now it's about time to share with you my wrist warm-up routine. There are many more resources out there on YouTube, and I will link them so that you can make sure you give your wrists some love. Let's start. We start started off with simply circling our wrists. You can rotate them in both directions, however it feels comfortable for you. You can then also move your hands up and down. Because of climbing, my forearms are super tight, so I really have to start it off easy. So I start in a seated position and simply put weight on my palms. And after some time I start rocking back and forwards to increase the weight on my palms and also change the angle of my wrists. Only when I feel that my wrists are warmed up and ready, I start increasing the weight by, for example, lifting up my knees. Once I feel ready, I shift on all fours, and I again start by slowly increasing the weight on my palms. I move my weight back and forth, and I do this motion rather slowly to really allow my muscles to open up. Then I like to go in circles. I do these circles in both directions, and I once again do them rather slowly. To even further increase the weight on my palms, I move into a plank position. In the plank position, I start by shifting my weight forward and staying in this position. Bit by bit, I try to shift my weight more and more forward to increase the stretch. After that, I once more like to go in circles again in both directions. Now we change the position of our hands and repeat many of the previous exercises. With the fingers showing backwards, I start in a seated position, simply putting pressure on my palms. When my wrists feel ready, I start leaning back as far as I can and stay in that position. Then I'm moving once more to all fours to put more pressure on my palms and my wrists when my fingers are facing backwards. As my fingers are showing backwards, now the emphasis is on moving backwards instead of forwards. So I'm once more rocking with my weight back and forward in a rather slow manner. I also like to stay at my maximum for quite some breaths. I press my palms firmly into the ground to make sure that they're not lifting up when I'm leaning backwards. This is followed again by a round of circling in both directions. I perform this movement really slowly to pay attention to how my wrists feel. To increase the flexibility of my wrists, I also stretch my fingers. On all fours, I place my palms on my mat, and then I start slowly lifting up only the palm of my hands, keeping my fingers on the ground. Make sure that the knuckles of your fingers do not lift up, so press them firmly on the ground while your palms are lifting. I usually stay in this lifted position for a couple of breaths. Finally, I like to stretch my wrists in the other direction. I am on all fours and I place my hands on the mat. The palms are facing upwards and the fingers are showing to each other. Make sure that your elbows are not bent, so you maintain a 90-degree angle between your hands and your forearm. Similarly to the exercises before, I now like to rock my body forwards and backwards, again in a slow manner. Of course, I also do some circles with my palms facing upwards. The next exercise can be quite demanding on your wrists, so be careful, it should not hurt. If you're not ready yet, then keep one palm facing down while the other one is in the position that we had before. Then you move into a plank position to put more weight on your wrist. If your wrists allow, you can do this exercise with both palms facing upwards. Even if you do an extensive wrist warm-up, I recommend you to start gently with your yoga practice. To me, this means doing my sun salutations without jumping for the first 2 rounds at least. I also like to stay in the forward fold with my palms on the ground, pressing firmly into the ground to get my palms used to this position. Now you're here watching this video, most probably because you're already having wrist pain. I've been there too. In the following I will show you options and how I dealt with my wrist pain. Okay, one option is simply taking a break. Another one would be taking it a little bit easier, maybe doing a yoga style that is not so demanding on your wrists. The last option would be to adapt your practice. Using blocks is one possibility to reduce the pressure on your wrists. However, I do not find them to be very versatile, and I often find that they do not give me the stability that I would like to have. Option B is taking your fists. The advantage is that this will make you super strong and will also improve your wrist stability. The disadvantage is that some postures will get quite challenging, but with some practice you would be surprised what is possible. Option C is the option that I prefer, and this is using parallettes. Parallettes have not yet really arrived in the yoga world and are more known in the calisthenics world. Calisthenics athletes do also put a lot of pressure on their wrists. No wonder that they are using parallettes. Parallettes are super versatile. They will allow you to get stronger shoulders while they go easy on your wrists. If you do already have wrist pain and you really do not want to take a break, then parallettes is the option to go for. And I didn't get sponsored to say this, but I really love my parallettes, and I will put the link to these parallettes down in the description box. I hope this video will help you keeping your wrists healthy so that you can keep on practicing. If you have any question about the content of this video, then leave your question in the comment box below. If you enjoyed this video, then give it a thumbs up and do not forget to follow my channel so that you don't miss out on any other content that I will provide. Thank you for watching. Servus!